Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth. Anger and fear are two sides of the same coin. In fact, most, not all, but most expressions of anger are actually rooted in fear. So whenever you see somebody who's exhibiting angry behavior, the first question you might want to ask is, what is this person afraid of? I say all that to say this. Whenever you got these people in the white media who just have to dump on Bill Cosby or O.J. Simpson and they're just all hot and bothered about him, and then they're angry when these guys are acquitted, or in the case of Cosby, has the illegal conviction against him overturned, you might want to ask, why are they scared of this? Why is this frightening them? Well, the main reason why happens to be white supremacy, for those of you who don't like facts, is real. A lot of black folks try to tell themselves that it's not. Denying reality isn't going to make it go away, so since white supremacy is real and it controls the world, we have to be honest with ourselves about its existence, and we have to be serious about destroying it. The enemy needs to be continually reassured that they are in complete control. That's why the regular lynching of a black person is so important to them, particularly black men. Because he's supposed to be the one who's protecting his community. He's supposed to be the one who's the leader of his community. And well, if you can just drag him out of his home, just have him put in prison or have him executed for nothing whatsoever, why, that's your reassurance that you're in total control. This is where the courtroom lynching of Bill Cosby comes in. You see, there were a lot of people who, while they may have been entertained by Bill Cosby, they resented the fact that he had as much money as he had. That just absolutely burns these white supremacists up. Anytime that there's a black man who's got two nickels to rub together, they just get furious. Now, while they may not have been able to stop this black man from acquiring and accumulating his riches, what they desperately want is for the system to make sure that he doesn't keep it. They demand to be reassured that nothing has changed. So you make sure you find a black man, high profile, and you dirty him up. Oh, the second you accuse him of a crime, we know that we're off to the races. That's all you got to do, just make an accusation and the rest will take care of itself. The machine starts up on its own. The railroading of Bill Cosby was not based on any facts. It was based on rumors, unsubstantiated innuendo, and gossip, mostly from a bunch of bottom feeders who didn't have talent to actually make anything of themselves. You notice how all of these slugs and scumbags from underneath the bottom of the barrel, here they are making accusations at Cosby, and what have these women done for themselves? I think their best representative was Janice Dickinson, who certainly earned her name saying to Howard Stern that she had slept with over 1,000 men. During Cosby's second trial, his attorney Tom Mesereau confronted Janice Dickinson with her own autobiography, pointing out that she herself had said that she was in Cosby's hotel room in Lake Tahoe and that she took a couple of Quaaludes and went to sleep alone in her hotel room, and that now here she is saying that, Cosby violated her and she felt that there was nothing she could do. He's like, you put in your book that nothing happened. So what you got to say to that? And she said, well, I did lie in the book. I lied because I needed money for my kids. These were the accusers who the crooked judge, in this case, allowed to testify against Cosby. They're bringing all sorts of unsubstantiated stuff. They have no evidence for it, but it's a matter of, hey, we're stacking the deck and white supremacy is going to make sure that none of us get punished for this anyway. So let's go ahead and violate the Constitution and this black man's rights 5 ways from Sunday. The white media was on a jihad because the white media executives who own and run the white media, they're the ones who are the real sexual predators. And that being the case, they had a position where they were able to use the media that they controlled to fabricate a fiction. And the fiction is that the black man is going to be the face of sexual predation in America. You don't need to worry about the Harvey Weinsteins and the Charlie Roses and the rest of the garbage. You need to worry about these black men over here. And that's why the same white media, who usually is always looking at different aspects of the trial. Well, what about this? What about that? Do you think the DA slipped up on this? Whenever there's some white supremacist thug with a badge who murders a black person, you got the white media who's all over the prosecutor. They overcharged, they overreached. This is going to be very tough to prove. With Cosby, on the other hand, it's just a matter of, so how many years is this nigger going to get? His defense was really messing up, you see, just tons of, there's no way they're going to be able to get him out of this one. Okay, he happened to have a hung jury on the first trial. They were like, God dang it, these juries are so stupid. That's the white media crafting a narrative. And the narrative is, if there's a black defendant, he's guilty as hell. If you got a white defendant, well, there's no case. Because the last thing that we want is people thinking that white defendants are actually supposed to go to prison. And as for Andrea Constant, well, as far as she's concerned, she got her equity out of the game, or so she felt. But of course, when the illegal, unconstitutional conviction of Cosby was predictably overturned on appeal, easily just kicked and laughed out of court, the crooked DA, Kevin Steele, he knew that his butt was in a crack. Because now he understands that as he was advised by the prior DA, Bruce Castor, Cosby could come after the DA's office and after Kevin Steele personally. You violated the man's constitutional rights and you knew that you did it when you did it. You knew you were committing a crime. So Kevin Steele has been desperately trying to find some way to salvage the illegal conviction. He's been trying to find some way to salvage it because if he can't, well, two things happen. One, you got Cosby who is able to truthfully say the conviction was thrown out because I was innocent. That's the reason why. And secondly, you also got the DA who understands that people are going to start looking at him. He doesn't want to be winding up like Mike Nifong, losing his law degree and then losing his freedom. That's what this is about. This is about we got to keep Cosby on the defensive. We got to constantly bring up, he's guilty. Come on, you know he's guilty. You're not going to let a white man go down just because we put this nigger away illegally. You're not going to let that happen, right? That's what this is all about. White media understands, okay, there wasn't a case there. We had our fun. We got to lynch this black man in the media. We got to put him away for a crime that he didn't even commit. It was illegal, yeah, but okay, we got our jollies off of that one. And while you got Kamal Dumbbell, who was putting together propaganda pieces that nobody's watching and nobody believes, their consolation prize is that they get to tell themselves, well, at least we put him in jail for a little while. Okay, he's out, and the conviction got thrown out because it was illegal, but the least we can still say, well, he got convicted. He did get convicted. That's all that matters. He was convicted. Well, Kevin Steele, in his increasingly desperate attempts to try to keep himself out of prison, he's still trying to find a way to get some court to give the illegal conviction thumbs up, and this time it was the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, we're not even going to hear this. It's so blatantly obvious that this was unconstitutional. It was so laughably clear that you violated Bill Cosby's rights. You committed a crime is what that is. You didn't just violate his rights, you committed a crime. Kevin Steele committed a crime with that. And it was so obvious, even the Supreme Court said, we're not even going to hear this case. We're kicking this one on a reflex. You don't have any reason to be coming to us. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court was right. And that's the end of it. Now, this is where the game gets a little bit deep, so I need you to listen close. A key component of the glue that holds white supremacy together happens to be its ability to bestow benefits upon, or at least the perception that is bestowing benefits upon those classified as white. But if those benefits stop coming in, if those tangibles stop arriving, if they don't get the psychic benefits of being reassured that they're better than black people, if they start seeing cracks in the wall, then what happens is they start turning on each other, and it don't take much. Why, just take a look at Kyle Rittenhouse. He's sitting here excoriating his former lawyers like Lynn Wood. Here they are having veritable knockdown dragouts about who's going to get the $2 million in bail money that he was given by all those racist right-wing rubes. White supremacy doesn't have any principles. All it's got is situational ethics and moral relativism. That's it. Thirst for power, that's the closest thing to a principle that white supremacy has. So these guys will be at each other's throats in a heartbeat. And that's exactly what happened with this cabal of crooks who did the courtroom lynching of Bill Cosby. Andrea Constant, just to show that there's no honor among thieves, she sued Bruce Castor for defamation. Bruce Castor, you'll recall, he was the DA who made the promise to Cosby that he wouldn't prosecute Cosby criminally. Well, after the second trial, Andrea Constant decided she would sue Bruce Castor for defamation because he said there was no case, that a jury wouldn't believe her. That's the reason why he said, I have to give this Cosby some sort of deal because ain't no jury going to believe this woman. By the way, he decided to settle with her. It serves him right because the entire reason that he made that promise not to prosecute Cosby criminally was because, as he himself admitted, he wanted to help stack the deck against Cosby in the event that there was civil litigation against him, which he knew that there was. That's the reason he did it, because he knew that there was no criminal case. That was a non-starter, and he knew it. So Castor decided, let's go ahead and make a little investment for the near future. Stack the deck against Cosby in civil court, where the burden of proof happens to be a preponderance of the evidence rather than beyond a reasonable doubt. And we're going to make sure that whoever accuses him, they're at least able to give him death by innuendo. There won't be anything that actually proves he did anything, but we'll just make it where there's enough where they can say, well, they're able to say that you did thus and so. There's a big doggone huge difference between somebody asking you for a couple of prescription pills and whether or not you actually physically violate someone. And by the way, what they basically charged Cosby with was that he molested Constant. That's what it was. But they were trying to blow it up as big as possible because this was a racial media distraction campaign. Now, as DA Bruce Castor, he knew that he's only supposed to be thinking about whatever criminal case is in front of him. He's not supposed to be moonlighting as co-counsel for some plaintiff, but that's what he was doing in the Cosby civil trial. He's not supposed to be scheming how to set a citizen up to be fleeced in civil court. But it says a lot that the only reason Andrea Constant even got what little money she managed to hustle out of Bill Cosby was entirely because Bruce Castor used his position as DA to give her access to testimony that she could never have gotten on her own. She would never have been able to get the completely taken out of context statement from Bill Cosby during that deposition if Bruce Castor had not engineered events to allow her to. If Castor had decided that he would not make any sort of deal with Cosby, then Constant's legal stunt would have died in the deposition. Cosby would have pleaded the fifth. That would have been the end of that. She owes what little short-lived victory she thought she had gained entirely to Bruce Castor. And look at how she repaid him. She sued him. Andrea Constant is the quintessential parasite looking for a payoff. When you hear me use expressions like MAW, that means model, actress, whatever, Constant is exactly the kind of toilet-dwelling, cinder-block-jawed, snaggle-toothed, inbred, perverted piece of crap I'm talking about. That basically describes her to a T. But of course, the main villain in this little drama is the corrupt, racist DA of Montgomery County, Kevin Steele. Bill Cosby is 84 years old. I don't expect that at his age, and after all he's been through, that he's necessarily looking to get into another courtroom battle, but I think he needs to. A large part of why these things keep happening is that whenever some slimy racist DA decides that they're going to use their position and the unlimited resources of the taxpayers' dollars to persecute a black person in court, the celebrity 99% of the time is only thinking about making the situation go away as quickly as possible. And they usually have some white manager or white agent or whomever who are saying, we just need to make this go away. Just settle it. Isn't that what Richard Pryor said his attorney told him back in the day? Just settle. Just settle. That's what they do because they're listening to these people and they shouldn't be. Nobody ever thinks to make the bastards pay a price for targeting black people, and that's the reason why they keep doing it. As far as they're concerned, hey, we've never been made to pay a price for it. Why stop now? These guys, all they care about is just making the situation go away. This is the reason why you don't see me showing a whole lot of respect for these black celebrities. When this mess happens, someone's going to have to decide that they're going to spend the time and the money to actually make the bastards pay a price for this. You see, when Mike Nifong went after the Duke lacrosse players, they didn't just decide that when the case imploded, largely due to right-wing media people who were attacking it morning, noon, and night. They didn't decide, well, we're done with that. We're putting it behind us. And we just want to move on with our lives. They said, hell no, this guy's got to pay a price. Now, when you had members of the white media who were covering the Covington creeps who were at the Capitol, they decided that, we're just not going to be allowing you to do any sort of reporting that we don't like, so we're going to be trying to make you guys pay a price. Doesn't matter if it's Michael Jackson, O.J. Simpson, Bill Cosby, or whomever. You got too many of these black men who, as far as they're concerned, they just want to get back to their mansion and their kidney-shaped pool and to their adoring fans without realizing white supremacy is not going to let that happen. These guys are living in a dream world, and even getting dragged into the real one isn't enough to wake them up. Though that said, it is still amusing to hear all of these folks, especially in the white media, who are gnashing their teeth and shaking their fists and, oh my God, and why didn't they just overturn it? Who cares about the Constitution? All this phony outrage by the racists in law enforcement and in the media because they want to reassure themselves that they can have a black person sent to prison based solely on their word, that it can be proven that they're lying, that everything that they're saying is totally false, but it doesn't matter. Whatever they want to be, especially where it pertains to black people. If they want something to happen, that's what happens. Laws be damned. And they recognize fully that if they fail to set up the racial distraction, then they're going to wind up like Harvey Weinstein. These white media executives, they're the biggest sexual predators on the planet. Bill Cosby is a free man, as he should be. Harvey Weinstein, however, is still in prison. And every day it becomes less and less likely that an appeals court is going to let him out, though you never know. And these boardroom bigots, they know that that could easily be one of them because a lot of them have done things far more egregious than even Weinstein. So for these white media executives, this is a matter of life and death. But there's a lot of people in the public who are playing along because the Weinsteins and the Les Moonveses and the rest of the creeps are in fact the culture of the dominant society. Oh, all of these people who you see making comments on the internet, or the people who are smiling when Cosby was put away, what they're really smiling about is they understand exactly the operation that's going on here. They share the guilt of the Weinsteins and their ilk because they're all doing the same things themselves, and they know it. Now, if the people pretending to be outraged about Cosby wanted something they could really be outraged about, then they need to focus on Brian Beck, a former Tennessee sheriff's deputy who admitted to raping a 14-year-old girl 6 years ago. And he didn't just rape that child once, he did it repeatedly over the course of 20 months. That's almost 2 years of raping a child. He was looking at 90 years in prison for the 2 counts of rape and 15 years for each count of sexual battery. No way out of this one. So what was his punishment? Well, you already know. There won't be any. Oh, they made sure to give this dude just the ultimate sweetheart plea deal. He gets probation, and best of all, he won't even have to register as a sex offender. You heard me right. No sex offender registry for this guy, so wherever he moves to, the parents in those areas, they'll have no idea that there's a child rapist who's walking around their neighborhoods. They won't even know because they won't be allowed to know. Now you want to get mad about a sexual offender. This is someone who they need to get mad about. But they're not, and they won't. And unlike Cosby, you don't have to make this one up. You don't have to bring in a bunch of fraudsters and hucksters and professional liars who will just make up fairy tales. Nobody lied about Brian Beck. Nobody violated his constitutional rights. Though he did violate a child. And here you thought that Brock Turner and Drew Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were just isolated incidents, huh? And as the DAs always do in these incidents, the prosecutor was doing the usual splaining, saying that giving this guy a plea that basically lets him totally off the hook. Well, it was the right thing to do because why? It's been 4 years we've been trying to get this trial underway due to COVID-related courtroom delays. And why? As long as it's taken, Beck's Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial are in danger of being violated. First of all, you never hear them speak that way about a black defendant at all. There are black defendants who have been in jail for 2+ years and haven't even had their freaking day in court. And this before the pandemic. There have been courtroom delays all over the doggone world. This guy is not some unique case. If you're going to let this guy go on the grounds that why we've taken too long to bring him to trial, well, hell, you might as well let a lot of those black folks go then because they've been spending a lot longer in legal limbo than this guy has. But as we've seen with Brock Turner and Drew Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, these guys don't need a pandemic as an excuse. Any day that ends in Y will be sufficient. The DA said that Beck pleaded to a felony, so he won't be able to become a cop anywhere else, and he won't be able to own a gun, so isn't that enough? Actually, it's not. Because when you got someone who's so depraved that they would spend the better part of 2 years raping a child, that's someone who clearly doesn't have much respect for the law. And that DA sounding just like Kristen Clark and her liars during the trial of Ahmaud Arbery's murders, that DA in Tennessee said that it would spare the victim from having to testify, so everyone needs to move on. You know, the prosecutors are always trying to dictate to the victims of these crimes what's in their best interest, how they should feel about it. That's the reason why Brian Beck's smiling in this picture, same way Kim Potter was. So for all the morons and mental midgets who are saying, well, Jeffrey Epstein, that was money, man. That was politics, man. That was money, man. Well, it just goes to show you don't have to be Jeffrey Epstein to get the Jeffrey Epstein treatment. However, you do have to be white. And unlike Epstein, this Beck animal, he won't have to worry about unexpectedly committing suicide under mysterious circumstances. He doesn't have any presidents or princes who could be incriminated if he were to talk, so he ought to be safe. Though he shouldn't be. There won't be any calls to change the laws to prevent this from happening again. Unlike with Cosby, you're not going to have any DAs running on a platform of, I'm going to get this Brian Beck guy put away for something. They're not doing that. Nobody running for the state legislature saying, vote for me and I'll make sure that the next Brian Beck goes to prison. Oh yeah, the people who are out there in the public who are clucking their teeth and testing, isn't that sad? They're looking at also going, well, hell, you put Brian Beck away, you got to put a lot of us away too, so. And nobody's asking whether or not this creep has any other victims, and you know that there's other victims. This is being treated as a one-off. Now with R. Kelly, you had that creep prosecutor, Kim Fox, asking, are there any other people who have any accusations they want to bring against R. Kelly? Anybody at all? They were freaking taking applications. Who wants to accuse R. Kelly of something? This Brian Beck guy, as far as they're concerned, okay, case closed. We're trying to bury this one. No, we don't care if there's any other accusers out there, any other victims. You know, we've already, as far as we're concerned, statute of limitations, Sixth Amendment, it would take too long to bring him to trial, and he's white, so we're letting him go. Now, these clowns have all the fire and fury for Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, but when you bring up the Brian Becks, who there's no doubt they committed their crimes, all of a sudden these people lose their righteous indignation. All of a sudden they just shrug their shoulders and say, "Aw, man, that was wrong." And then they just walk away. A lot of the people who are putting on all these displays of phony anger about black men accused of sexual assault, they're real quiet now, and they're going to remain quiet because a lot of them are doing the same as Beck and Weinstein and Brock Turner and Drew Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein. They know people who do these things, or they're doing it themselves. For them to see Cosby freed and to see the attempts to try to re-stick the illegal conviction to him fail, that scares them. Because as has been shown with the police who are murdering black people ruthlessly, once people get some momentum behind the idea of punishing a particular class of people who have been immune from law, that can become habit forming. You better believe that the white men who run the media and a lot of those people in the society, that's definitely not something they want to become the new normal. If they can't distract the public by ginning up phony charges and a phony outrage campaign against a black man, then it won't be long before they have the spotlight on themselves. People aren't focusing on the Brian Becks. People were focusing more on Judge Persky than they were on Brock Turner, and they're fine with that. Because once Persky gets thrown out, they'll put another clown in his place who will be just as bad and do the same thing. White supremacy is not necessarily based on who is at the controls of it. As we saw in Kentucky with that piece of trash, Daniel Cameron, who told everybody, I'm not prosecuting the murderers of Breonna Taylor. Some of the worst and most vicious and egregious operators of the white supremacist machine aren't even white. What matters is whether or not the machine produces the predetermined result that they want. If it does, then all's well with the world, but if not, well, they immediately go into panic mode, or as the white media is showing, they immediately start raging. I personally love to hear the sound of the wailing and gnashing of teeth, but the problem happens to be that these are things that are happening after the damage has been done. Bill Cosby, forget about going to court. He never should have been charged in the first place. And unless and until we start making these scumbags pay a price for trying to use the courtrooms as just another venue to attack us, these things are going to continue to happen. Black people in general and black celebrities in specific who think to themselves that the white supremacists are simply going to allow them to sit at home and do their thing, they are sorely mistaken. If you are not making sure that the white supremacists cannot operate, then you are enabling them to come after you next, and they will come after you next. So a little tip for all of those black celebrities out there: instead of spending all of your time obsessing over whether or not you're still on the cheese and croissant circuit and you're still being invited to the parties up in the hills at the mansions owned by the real sexual predators, these white media executives, instead of obsessing over that, maybe you might want to be sparing a few moments to make sure that you know who the DA is, and not merely know who he is, make sure that it's someone who you chose, that you selected. Bill Cosby was very proud of himself with the idea that he was going to get enough money together to buy NBC. Now he realizes that instead of trying to buy a network, he should have spent his time buying some DAs, buying some judges instead. That would have been a far better investment. And the same thing goes for R. Kelly. While he was busy trying to figure out how many women that he could sleep with, should have been spending some time making sure that some of those DAs and some of those judges were people that were in his pocket, people who he selected. And sure, it does cost a lot of money to make sure that you get a DA elected to office to bankroll their campaign, and to make sure that these criminal court judges are people who you selected, people who are not going to do things like Kevin Steele and that corrupt judge did in this case. Yes, that is expensive. It's certainly not cheap to make sure that they can't pull these kind of stunts against you. But as I think Bill Cosby would agree after all he's been through, the cost of not doing it is a lot higher. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Loke Thies, Sheila Thomas, Wendell, Federica Moore, and Brian Ellis. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.